Alright, so we sell a lot of the Empire 68 bottles, or the Empire bottles in general, and one thing we get a lot of questions about is the servicing of the regulator. We typically don't recommend to service your own regulator if you don't feel comfortable, so make sure that if you don't feel comfortable touching compressed air or high pressure air, or if you've never done it before, bring it by to us. Bring it to our store, go to your local pro shop, go to your local field. Hopefully they're experienced and feel comfortable to do it. Otherwise, give us a call. Maybe we can help you over the phone so you feel a little more comfortable with it. But first things first, if you're going to service your own regulator, make sure that the gauge says 0. These gauges are pretty inexpensive, so if they can fail, they can be inaccurate. So in addition to making sure that the gauge says 0, you want to make sure you go ahead and press down the pin up top. I just got a large Allen key, and you're going to press it down. You're going to make sure no air at all comes out of the top. If you want to be extremely safe, I do recommend wearing safety glasses when doing this, because if there is any air in the bottle and the air does come out, it can spray dirt or little pieces of metal that may be left over inside the regulator inside your eye, and so you don't want to do any of that. So definitely recommend safety glasses, and again, if you don't feel comfortable working on your own air tank, don't do it at all. So right now, the gauge says 0, and make sure the pin is being pressed. In some cases, there is a chance there's still air in the bottle, even though we're pressing our pin here and the gauge says 0. So if for some reason you start working on your bottle and air starts coming out, stop what you're doing and take it to your local field. There's a small chance that sometimes regulators do get clogged up. I've seen it half a dozen times probably. Regulator will get clogged, so no air can come out of the bottle into the regulator, which means you can press the pin all you want and the gauge says 0, but there's still air being stored inside of here. So again, any air starts coming out when you've tested both of these options, stop what you're doing and take it to your local field. Okay, but right now, this is a brand new bottle, so I know for sure it's empty. And what I'm going to do is there are 2 screws on this regulator here. And I'm going to go grab my Allen key. You want to make sure you have the right size. I believe this is a 3/32. Go ahead and unscrew it. If for some reason your bottle, I believe some of these are even metric. If it doesn't fit or it wobbles too much, stop what you're doing, go grab your other set. Make sure you don't want to strip out these set screws at all. Okay, so I've removed both set screws on the side here, and I'm going to go ahead and take my hand and unscrew this. You want to be careful. Sometimes these threads here are real sharp, so that's why I have a rag here. If this was difficult to unscrew, I was going to grab a rag to do it, but this one comes apart pretty easy. So again, this is where if there is still air in the bottle, you'll start hearing air coming out. So I'm just going to unscrew this here. And this is called your bonnet. So you're going to pull that off there. And inside of your regulator housing, so this is the base of your regulator, you have your fill nipple, your gauge, your 1.8K burst disc, and your 7.5K. So just to explain these briefly, the 1.8 is 1800 psi. That is how much pressure is coming out of the regulator. That is a safety pressure disc device that if the pressure coming out of your regulator is too high, this will actually blow a hole in it, which allows the air to release. The 7.5 is actually for the cylinder. If too much pressure is actually inside the cylinder and you fill this bottle over 7,500 psi, this burst disc is designed to release the pressure. It'll puncture a small hole in the inside of it and all that pressure will blow out. So if you ever blow a 1.8K burst disc, that's because your regulator is not working correctly. Something's inside of it, something's damaged, something's been, some debris or something's got inside of it, it's not working correctly. And so that's why sometimes you'll buy 5 of these 1.8K burst discs and just keep putting them on. It keeps happening. It's because you haven't fixed the problem. So sorry to go off on a tangent on that, but just a little basic information. We get a lot of those questions. So again, this is your base of your regulator, and then you have your bonnet. I'm going to start with cleaning the base. I'm going to take a small rag and I'm going to clean off these threads. You don't want any debris to get inside the regulator. So if you are going to clean this and service it, make sure you do it right. Go ahead and grab a rag. And the reason I'm grabbing a rag is sometimes these threads are extremely sharp. So you want to go ahead and clean it off there. And then I'm going to take a Q-tip on the inside here and just clean around the edges of it. In the very bottom of this regulator, you probably can't see it, there's a small hole with like a little nipple. It comes to a point on the inside of it, and that is where the regulator piston seals against it. You want to make sure that is the cleanest part on this whole regulator. So you're just going to take a Q-tip, clean around the edges of it. You will want to inspect it afterwards. Make sure there's no lint or any dirt inside of this. And that's pretty straightforward on that one. So this is the Empire 68 Mega Lite bottle. This bottle that I'm working on was made in 07 of 2020. So what is that? July of 2020. So this is going to be the most up-to-date regulator piston and design on the inside of it. And there are going to be little shims inside. So when you pull this apart, make sure you take it real slow. Okay, so I'm going to take this, set this off to the side. I'm going to go ahead and grab the piston with 2 fingers here. And I'm going to pull the bonnet away from it. I'm just going to wobble it out. And you've got these pieces here. So I don't recommend to actually take this apart. You don't have to take these shims off, but they do go in a certain way. So if you do pull them off, I would definitely make sure you take a picture of it beforehand. Some older models will have, I believe, more or less shims on the inside of it. So you don't really want to mess that up if yours is different than this one. And they are kind of held on by this O-ring here. So just be real careful. Make sure you just keep them all together and you don't have to touch anything. You don't have to basically mess with the shims if you keep them on the stack or keep them on the piston. So I'm going to take a small rag here. I'm going to wipe the O-rings off. Just going to take it and rub it on my finger or spin it on my finger to clean up the bottom O-ring. And I'm going to do the same for the top. And you're good to go. And you want to clean the bottom up. This is what's called a reg piston. On the bottom here is your regulator seat. What that means is a little rubber piece that seals against the inside metal nipple that I was talking about inside the regulator. If debris gets in between these 2 pieces, it'll allow air to seep out and the regulator will overpressurize, which will cause the regulator to fail or to overpressurize and the burst disc blows. So if for some reason you're blowing that 1.8K burst disc, it's typically this piece right here. You need to replace the piston or replace the regulator seat. So I'm just going to clean that off real well. You want to do this, of course, in a clean environment. Inside the bonnet of your regulator, the top part here, you're going to have your pin and your pin spring. So on some of these are too short or too long depending on your gun. This is the culprit of this. So if you can find a longer one, depending on your gun that you're using, sometimes an Empire bottle doesn't necessarily the bottle won't activate on an older style Empire gun, typically what we've seen. So all you need is a longer pin here, and we have those. Check with your local store. They should have them if you're having that problem, if you purchased an Empire bottle and you're having problems. So anyways, this is your regulator pin and pin spring, and then of course your bonnet. So inside your bonnet is a small O-ring across the top here, and I'm going to push this out from the top with the round side, nothing sharp because I don't want to damage anything, and it should pop out the bottom. See if I can get it there. Okay, so inside of your bonnet, you're going to have your reg pin, your reg spring, and then on the inside of your bonnet, there's a small O-ring on the top here. And I'm not going to touch that, but if for some reason you're getting a leak out the top of your bonnet, it's going to be that O-ring on the inside. And it's not just a standard O-ring you can find in any paintball gun. It is a hardened O-ring. I don't know the material off the top of my head, but it is very specific, and we do carry them in stock. But basically, it seals around the regulator pin, and of course if the pin gets damaged or that O-ring gets damaged, you'll see a leak that comes out the top of the regulator here whenever it's aired up. But what we're going to do is just take our Q-tip and we want to clean the inside around that O-ring and around the threads on the inside. These threads are very sharp, so be careful when you're cleaning them. I'm going to take it against my finger like this. I'm not going to use my finger itself. I'm going to use my finger against the Q-tip and clean it around, or you can take a rag, but sometimes the rag will get stuck on the thread, so you don't want to do that. But go ahead and clean this part inside because you want to make sure there's no debris to get inside your regulator. And you're good to go. Okay, so I usually use Planet Eclipse grease or Dow 33 or your dye grease to lube these pieces here. So I'm going to take a little bit on both the top and the bottom and just spin it around. Put a little grease on there and do a little on the bottom here. You never, ever, ever want to put gun oil on the inside of your regulator. Do not do it. Don't think, hey, it's okay. It's just not okay. We've heard horror stories about it. The grease is what we use. We have pretty good luck with it. It's what we use on all of our repairs. And we've never been told that anybody has any problems, so we stand behind that. But as far as gun oil, do not use paintball gun oil or any gun oil on the inside of your regulator. Okay, so we put a little grease on here. We've inspected both O-rings. Of course, this is brand new. These are not damaged. That would be, if these are damaged for some reason, that's what's going to cause a leak out the side of your regulator. Okay, and now we're going to put it back together. So now that we have everything clean, you're going to want to go ahead and take your regulator piston and everything together and just kind of clicks into place, just like that. And then on some other regulators, you can hold the reg up, straight up and down and put everything together. But on a Empire reg, you want to do it a little different. You're going to want to drop this pin right inside there, and hopefully, there's no way I could get that lucky again, but you're going to drop it down until it falls right through the hole. That way it's lined up. Lay it off the side, and you want to put your pin spring into the piston here. If you try to do it any other way that I found out, it wants to fall out. So once you've got the pin spring in there and the pin inside there, oh, of course it came out. Now that you have everything together, you want to just go ahead and take it and turn it sideways and screw it together. And then as long as everything's together, you see the pin will stay there. Before you put any screws in, you want to take an Allen key and make sure this has spring tension against it. Just like that. That way make sure that the spring and everything is lined up accordingly, or how it's supposed to, and you're good to go. And then you will want to take your Allen keys and use them to tighten up these set screws on the side. And these need to be pretty firm, firmly tightened up. If they're not tightened up enough, the top of this bonnet will actually spin when you unscrew it from your gun. So you're good to go. Again, if you don't feel comfortable doing this, the best thing I would recommend is to stop by our store or another store. They should test the output pressure on this bottle after you've rebuilt it. That makes sure you've done it correctly, make sure everything's working correctly. If you don't put it together correctly, you can get one of their burst discs again to blow. It costs you $5 or $10 to have somebody service it typically. So, but other than that, that is your basic servicing of an Empire regulator. If you guys have any questions or comments, please comment below. Please like our video if you found value in our tech videos. And of course, if you like weekly review videos and tech videos, make sure you subscribe to our channel. Thank you guys so much for watching.